notice how you have balance across your day and your food intake, and how to notice when you're out of balance and restoring it, that sort of stuff?
So your question's about balance when you're first starting with raw food, or?
Yeah. Or,
So
yeah.
define balance for me. What is balance for you?
Good question. I mean, like, okay, like one layer might be, protein, carbs, fats, so on, that sort of stuff. The other one would be, how's my energy balance? There could probably be many other layers beyond that.
Yeah, so I mean, my criteria is very similar to what I was mentioning to, your name is Zig, or?
Ziggy.
Ziggy, okay. Where my first criteria is how many hours do I forget to eat?
Okay.
And if it's 0, my rule of thumb is I gotta come up upscale, because I used to, get up in the morning like ravenous, even eating raw food, because the raw food I was eating had very little nutrition. It was raw food, except the nutrition density was way, way low. So that's the first thing I'd look at, is how long do I wait before I eat. And then the second criteria is what's my mood and energy like. In other words, if they're big fluctuations, then for me, that would be out of alignment with my outcome. So everything's about outcome. So if your outcome is to have continuous energy all day, then you would eat different than somebody, for example, that was, hopefully something different than people here. Say somebody was in, like they were working in a cubicle at some dead-end job, and they were bored to death, and we were, thinking about putting a gun to their head. Cancel clear. Anyway, so they would require to medicate themselves. They wouldn't want a bunch of creative energy, right? Because then they're just going to, get up and leave, or have a fist fight with their boss or something. So that'd be no good. So it's based on outcome. And as for the whole carb protein thing, I don't even pay attention to that, because none of that's meaningful, or at least for me, if I'm eating where I'm nourished, especially protein. In fact, when we had our client practice, the first thing we do is we go through and take every shred of protein out of a person's diet, because most people who came to us in our client practice had severe protein poisoning, because they bought into this whole thing that you have to have all these massive quantities of X grams of protein per body weight. Oh, Lord have mercy. And it was killing it, literally. So that's the first thing we do, strip out all the protein out of their diet. Because how many people had kids? How many moms have had kids, especially? So have you noticed that between 0 and 18 months, do them little pups grow fast?
Mm-hmm.
So what's their most perfect food?
Breast milk.
Breast milk. What's the protein content of breast milk?
Very low, like 2%.
2%. You can get more protein out of sucking the juice out of a white potato than out of mother's milk. So the whole thing about protein is just wrong, because after we get out of the maturation stage into we're in the mature stage, we're in the maintenance mode, right? We've gone through maturation, we're done, we're cooked. So we're in the maintenance stage, so we even require less protein than other people.
So is there something that in people's, like the standard American diet, they think they need more protein, and then when they go raw, their requirements are less, or the chemistry changes somehow, so that it works in a different way?
Rule of thumb is that most people are literally dying from the protein they're eating.
Okay.
I mean, most people are eating highly processed foods, and animal foods, and cooked foods. And if they're, going the high performance athletic track, then they're eating these big barrels of whey products and egg, powder, and so I mean, you will feel an expansion of energy temporarily when you eat that stuff, because it's so toxic that it hits the adrenal response to flush it out. It's like opening a vein and putting crystal methamphetamine in a syringe in your arm. That's the same thing. If you eat a food and you feel your heart just go out the roof, and oh man, I feel great. Like you have a burger or whatever, and you feel that way, there'll be a crash afterwards, and that's that fight or flight your body's hit the adrenals to get it flushed. So a good question though. Good question. So the real question is how much enzymes are in anything?
Yeah.
And the answer is
Would you get me some seasoning?
not much unless you pick it yourself. Because, for example, if you, like Yamai and I were just, oh, bless your heart, thank you. Yamai and I just were in Hawaii for 3 weeks, and we lived off raw produce. Oh, and we got there in lychee season too. I recommend when you're planning your trips to Hawaii, make sure that you're there the last part of May, first part of June, so you hit lychee season. Awesome. So whenever you pick something off a tree, it immediately begins to, the enzymes begin to denature. So there's a big difference between when we were eating things like people have picked right out of their gardens at the farmer's market and we ate them, just completely different taste. Especially things like mangoes, papayas, the coconuts there just rule. They're really good. So Yemaya and I eat enzymes all the time. In fact, I left this weekend without taking enzymes and I'm like, whoa. In fact, I'll have some here. Now I'm here and I can get some enzymes. So we started packaging our own enzymes because the ones that were available on the marketplace were good, and they just had less. My enzyme angel. That's a nice one. It's like a magic trick. The hand comes through with the enzyme. So we usually take enzymes almost like food. We graze more than eat, fixed meals. And so when we walk by the enzymes, if they speak to us, they say, "Hey, have some of these," then we have some.
So does that apply to superfood value too, or is that independent of the enzyme?
Well, each substance has a different set of components in it, and related to enzymes, enzymes denature very rapidly.
Okay.
Minerals and antioxidants stay intact. Even vitamins, to a degree, will stay intact much longer than enzymes. And they seem to anyway kick back on when the enzymes are added back in. So we usually eat enzymes with whatever we're eating, and take them, during the day too. Extremely mythical thing that you will hear raw foodists say, most of them anyway, that you must eat alkaline. So here's my thing: is my body is so alkaline that I require to manage my pH to drive it acid a lot of times. That'll either be through activities that heat my body up, whether it's adding additional salt to something, or physical activity, or eating a handful of nuts that haven't been soaked. In other words, just raw nuts.
Those are acidic?
Those are much more acidic than if you soak them.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
okay.
So life happens in the swing, and anybody that tells you have to be really alkaline all the time,
No, I don't agree with that. There's a lot of people having problems that are going so alkaline,
Yeah.
they're getting sick, and
Yep.
it's bad news.
Yeah, and so it's best to operate in the swing, and so whatever allows you to feel your best, that is going to be what's best. Keep in mind is if your sinuses are inflamed, that means every tissue system in your body is inflamed, including your organs, which means heart, brain, liver, kidneys, ain't good. So anything that causes me sinus congestion, if I feel a draw to eat that, I will eat that very moderately.